Alzheimer's should be a rare disease.
We now understand that Alzheimer's is a preventable disease in the first place.
You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make your brain better.
Hello, I'm Peggy Sarlin, and today I'm in Costa Mesa, California at the Amen Clinic with Dr. Daniel Amen. And you know Dr. Amen from his 10 best-selling books and from his public television series. He's a board-certified psychiatrist, double board-certified, who's been called the most popular psychiatrist in America. And he's the founder of the Amen Clinics. There are now 7 of them across the country. And of crucial importance to what we're going to talk about today, the Amen Clinics have built the world's largest database of functional brain scans, more than 135,000 of them. Now, Dr. Amen has written a really great new book called Memory Rescue. And there's so much actionable information in it that I just want to dive right in so you can start learning. So, welcome, Dr. Amen.
Thank you, Peggy.
You know, in your book, you write that 75% of older Americans report memory problems. And once you reach age 85, you have a 50% chance of dementia. So those are some pretty scary numbers there. But you've come up with what you call an insanely simple idea to counteract this problem. So tell us your insanely simple idea.
So if you want to keep your memory healthy, or even get it back if you think it's in trouble, you have to prevent or treat all of the risk factors that steal your mind. So, I mean, super simple. We know what steals your mind, and almost all of the risk factors are preventable or treatable. Even the genetic risk factors, we're finding that the things I talk about in Memory Rescue are even more helpful for the people who are most vulnerable. So how exciting is that you are not stuck with the brain you have. I think our big database has taught us that you can make your brain better, even if you've been bad to it. And I can prove it. You know, the imaging, we have done thousands of after scans. You know, after we saw troubled brains just last week, a really well-known best-selling author came to see us 2 years ago, and her brain was just a mess, and she was a mess, with problems with memory and focus and irritability and not being able to get work done, and she's 46. And by doing all the things we asked her to do, we did her 2-year follow-up scan, and she is dramatically better, and her brain is dramatically better. And she has Alzheimer's disease in her family. And so her first scan, you're like, oh, you're headed to the dark place. Because we can tell
You can see it
decades before you have any symptoms. And the exciting thing is she's not stuck with that brain. She's not stuck with that trajectory. You just have to be serious, and you have to have a plan.
You have to have a plan. Your book gives us the plan. But I think we should say right off at the beginning that if you want to save your brain, you're going to have to do this plan. You're actually going to have to do things. There isn't going to be some magic pill. You are going to have to be motivated. And so maybe one of the things to help people get motivated at the start is let's tell them some of the good things that will happen. We know they're going to get their memory back. But you mentioned also she was less irritable. She had better focus. I bet she looked better. I mean, tell us some of the other good things that to motivate us that we're going to do this plan.
Well, I mean, you're thinner, you're smarter, you're happier, your energy's better.
I love it already.
All of those things, you know, that we really want. And again, it's not hard. I've been working with a group at Stanford on how people change their behavior. And you change it through a series of small decisions or tiny habits. And as we studied it, we went, what's the most important tiny habit that you can have? And it comes down to every day asking yourself one really simple question. Is what I'm going to do today good for my brain or bad for it? And if you can answer that question, now it requires knowledge on, because a lot of people think that alcohol is good for their brain. The imaging work I, do says, no, forget it. It's not a health food. Some people think smoking pot is good for your brain.
That's one of my
The
questions.
imaging work says, stop lying to yourself. It's bad for you.
Good, I'm
Right?
glad.
I mean, anything that makes you eat and causes you to be dumb is not a good thing for your brain. But it's that one little question that I've actually played this game with my daughter since she was 2. She's 13 now. And I'm like, so we call it Chloe's game. Is this good for your brain or bad for it? And she can answer the question in almost any situation she's in. If I say avocado, she'll say 2 thumbs up, God's butter. If I say blueberry, she'll put her hands on her hips and go, well, are they organic? Because non-organic blueberries hold more pesticides than almost any fruit. And I'm like, of course they're organic. She said, well, they're God's candy. If I said, talking back to your redheaded mother, she'll say, way too much stress, bad for your brain.
So you said every day we're going to ask ourselves, is this good for my brain? But it's actually, we're going to ask ourselves that throughout the day. Every time we face a food choice, every time we face maybe an interaction that might promote stress, it's a constant question, which we're probably not used to asking ourselves. We're not used to thinking of, is this good for my brain? Most
Right,
of us are
because
not
nobody
programmed to
loves
think
their
that way.
brain. I mean, it's crazy.
You love your brain.
Well, I love mine. But very few people love their brain. And you know why? Is you can't see it. So you can see the wrinkles in your skin or the fat around your belly, and you can do something when you're unhappy with it. But because nobody looks at the brain, people don't fall in love with it. And that's how I came to all of this. Because I'm a psychiatrist. Why do I care about Lyme and mold and making sure you're not overweight? Because that wasn't part of my training. But when I started doing imaging, I saw my brain at 37, and it wasn't healthy. And my 60-year-old mother had a better looking brain than I did. And I come from a very competitive family. And that just irritated me. And I'm like, well, how do I have a better brain? It's like, well, you do the right things and you don't do the wrong things. And, science has told us these things are really great for your brain and these things aren't, because with a better brain, everything in your life is better. Your relationships are better. Your health is better. Your money's better because you make better decisions,
I'm with you
which
on
is a
that.
brain function.
It's a brain function. Well, I love what you're doing because you're helping us fall in love with our brains. You're giving us an appreciation for our brains, so we love them. That's good. One thing you wrote in the book I found absolutely fascinating was that people are coming to you later in the game of cognitive decline because of GPS. So tell us a bit. I think that's important. Tell us about that. People need
I know,
to hear
what a
this.
crazy thing. 30 years ago, I'd be in my office and, a wife would bring in a husband because he started crying. He couldn't find his way home in a city he lived in for 30 years.
Right.
But now, because of our smartphones, you can just type in home and it will find your way home. So people are actually being diagnosed later than ever before because of the assistance of technology. So we can hide our problems more effectively.
I think that's a crucial point. I don't think most people are aware of it. And we see the benefits of this technology. But the fact that it's, in fact, disguising weaknesses we need to address is not well known. So I did want to start with that point. So you've put together a program, the Bright Minds program, and we should say it's a mnemonic device. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Right, which is Greek for a memory aid.
It's a memory
And
aid.
it's how we help people remember things. And when you go to medical school, the first year you have to learn 50,000 new words and new terms. And I'm like,
It's hard to
And
say
so
that.
we came up with all sorts of memory devices, mnemonics, and so on. And as I was thinking of the big risk factors that you need to attack to keep your mind healthy or even rescue it if it's in trouble, there's 11 of them. And we created a mnemonic, Bright Minds,
Bright
to
Minds.
help you remember them.
Okay, so let's go through them so people get a sense of the full scope of what this program entails, so they can get a sense of what they're
But
going to do.
before we do that,
Okay.
can I just talk about
Yes.
seahorses for a little bit?
I know where you're going with this.
So it's really important to understand a part of the brain called the hippocampus. It's on the inside of your temporal lobes. It's about the size of your thumbs. And the hippocampus is critical for memory, learning, and your mood. And hippocampus is Greek for seahorse. And so in Memory Rescue, I talk a lot about the seahorses in your head.
Right.
And actually, toward the end of the book, there's a story of Scarlett and Sam, the seahorse twins. And it's really about what grows them and keeps them big, healthy, and strong, and what shrinks them and makes them old, weak, and frail. And the hippocampus is a very special part of your brain because it's one of the few parts of your brain that continually makes new nerve cells or new brain cells. So there are stem cells in the hippocampus. So for a healthy hippocampus, it makes up to 700 new brain cells every day. So I think of them as 700 baby seahorses. And are you doing things in your life that encourage them to survive and thrive, or are you doing things that kill them off? And if you love yourself, you want to love your seahorses, and just have that visual, if you will. Am I really taking care of part of me that is so special? It lets me, it really holds the treasure chest of my most precious moments, and I'm not dumping it out because I just make bad decisions.
Well, the hippocampus is where Alzheimer's starts. It's
the first area of the brain that dies.
And your book says something. I mean, I've read a lot about this. I learned something new. Actually, this will bring us to the first letter in your mnemonic, B for blood pressure, right?
Blood flow.
Blood flow. That's what I meant to say. So I learned from your book that when the blood-brain barrier starts to erode, starts to deteriorate, the first place that it starts to deteriorate is around the hippocampus. And that seemed to me to perhaps correlate with Alzheimer's, if that area is becoming more porous, more vulnerable.
More vulnerable to toxins, more vulnerable to infections, more vulnerable to inflammation, and the hippocampus is just so special. I mean, all of your brain is important, but when it comes to memory, this is the area we know is critical.
So let's start with B, blood flow. What do you want to tell us about blood flow?
So B is for blood flow. Low blood flow is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease.
And that's what you're seeing on your...
And that's what we see on our scans. So the scans we do here at Amen Clinics are called SPECT, which stands for single photon, piece of light, single photon emission computed tomography. It's basically a nuclear medicine study that looks at blood flow and activity patterns in the brain. And we can tell decades before you have any symptoms whether or not you're headed for trouble. Mm-hmm. And so what are the things that make us vulnerable to blood flow problems? Blood pressure. Any vascular or heart condition will do it. Being sedentary.
Being sedentary.
Caffeine constricts blood flow to the brain in a powerful way. Nicotine constricts blood flow to the brain. Having erectile dysfunction, because if you have blood flow problems anywhere, it likely means
Symptomatic of
they're
elsewhere.
everywhere. And so in Memory Rescue, we go through each of these risk factors And we go, okay, which ones do you have? And well, how do you attack it? And so obviously you got to get your blood pressure treated. If you have any vascular or heart condition, you need to be serious about treating them. So many people are not serious
Right.
about treating them because they don't know their why. They don't know why they want to be healthy. And exercise, probably the most powerful thing you can do to keep Scarlett and Sam, your
Your
hippocampi,
friendly seahorses.
healthy.
Right.
And it's not just any kind of exercise. So it's coordination exercises because they actually boost your cerebellum in the back bottom part of your brain, which help turn on your frontal lobe. So your judgment and decision making will be better. So I like dance and table tennis, my favorite.
I noticed a table in the other room.
Burst training, actually better than riding
What was
a
that one? I
bike.
missed that one.
Burst
First.
training. So, also called high intensity training.
That one I'm familiar with.
So rather than just be on a bike for half an hour, it's much better to sprint for 30 to 60 seconds and then go at a normal pace and then sprint again for 30 to 60 seconds and do that 4 or 5 times. Your metabolism will go up, but it's also been shown to increase blood flow and to do better. And then strength training, very important. Even if you're a girl, even if you're 80, don't hurt yourself. But the stronger you are as you age, the less likely you are to fall. So we'll talk about that under head trauma. But it also increases blood flow. So coordination exercises, strength training, high intensity or burst training. And it doesn't have to be hard. Like, I'm a total believer in what's the easiest way I can get this done.
Yeah, I love that.
And so I lift weights for about 35 minutes twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I work out each muscle group. And, you know, at 63, I'm stronger than I've ever been.
That's
right?
good.
I'm not going to be in the gym for an hour. And I walk a lot because I listen to books on tape and I like it. But while I walk, I burst. So I'll walk and then I'll walk as fast as I can and then I'll go back to normal and I play table tennis. And I do it because I love it and I know it's good for me.
So we know that if we want to really address blood flow issues, we're going to do these exercises, and we're going to think of it as we're making baby seahorses in our hippocampus. We're giving birth to new brain cells, and that's why I'm going to get off the couch, and do what I don't want to do.
Because you don't want them dying.
No, you do not
You don't want the
no.
babies dying.
No, it's
this is all about love.
Love.
And
Love your
people don't
brain.
get it. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, stop being a 4-year-old. It's like, come on. This is about adult love. That you're going to do the right thing because you love yourself. You love your wife. You love your children. You love your mission in life. You're doing this because you want to extend, prolong. And for me, I love my 4 children. I never want to live with them. I just don't. I
you
want
mean live with them as in they need to take care of you.
absolutely
that kind of live
not.
With them.
I don't want them
You don't want to be dependent.
telling me what to wear, what to eat, take my driver's
Bossing
license
you
from
around.
me. No, they'll pay me back for any sin I have committed. I'm like,
gonna happen.
I want to be independent.
All right, let's get to the next. So I could talk to you all day just about letter B, but we'll move on to R, which is retirement and aging. And that, in and of itself, retirement, you consider a risk factor
It
for
is.
cognitive decline.
When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. So you need to be engaged. Now, you know, at some point I may retire, but I'm going to
picture that.
retire and do something else. I'm going to do something interesting, something that keeps me passionate and engaged, and I am with what I do, so I can't imagine not doing that. But that's really critical. New learning and not doing things you already know how to do. So, I mean, I know how to write and I know how to teach. So I need to be doing different things that stretch my brain in new and different ways. A couple of other risk factors under retirement and aging, high ferritin levels. So ferritin is iron storage. And as we age, especially for men, they tend to store more and more iron. It's one of the reasons not to eat a lot of red meat because it has a lot of iron. If you have low iron levels, like many women do, red meat's awesome. High, bad.
Bad.
And so the way you decrease it, decrease red meat, decrease red wine. I know people already hate me.
Decrease red wine?
Yeah,
Did
because
I hear
red
you say
wine
that?
increases the absorption of iron in your diet.
Aw, you just disappointed me. Okay.
We'll get to alcohol. The other way, really, to decrease your ferritin levels or your iron storage is donating blood, which is good for you and good for other people. Now, there's one other way around it, but I was at the spice market in Istanbul a couple of years ago, and outside they had leeches for sale. And
I don't know if you're going to make that sale here today.
I looked at my wife and I'm like, why are the leeches here? And she's a nurse. And she said, it's a health practice that people bleed themselves in order to keep themselves healthy.
Well,
and I'm
I know
like,
that from
I'm
Victorian
going to the
novels.
Red Cross.
Yeah. I'm not going to do leeches like Victorian novels when they no. Okay, I believe inflammation. Am
I
I
is for
correct?
inflammation.
Okay, all right.
Which comes from the Latin word to set afire. When you have high inflammation in your body, it's like you have a low-level fire destroying your organs. And we measure it with something called C-reactive protein, also your omega-3 index. If you have low levels of omega-3s, rampant in this country, you often have high levels of inflammation. And we did a study of 200 consecutive patients, Damon Clinics. 95% of them had low levels of omega-3 fatty acids.
Wow.
We just published a new study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease that showed high omega-3 index in your body,
Right.
Scarlett and Sam were bigger. Low, they were smaller. And so you want to make sure you're either eating fish once or twice a week or taking fish oil to keep your omega-3s high. And you want to decrease the omega-6s in your diet, especially the processed corn and soy. Vegetable oils, not a great thing for inflammation.
So we know inflammation is horrible for the brain, but it's horrible for every other part of your body too. So we'll move on to G, genetics.
Which is genetics.
Genetics.
If you have Alzheimer's or a form of dementia in your family, you have a higher risk. Now, it's not a death sentence. It's a wake-up call. I have heart disease in my family. I have obesity in my family. I don't have heart disease and I don't have obesity. Why? Because I don't engage in the behaviors that are likely to trigger my genetic risk. And so the going theory, and there's lots of controversy, is it beta amyloid, is it tau? These are buildup of proteins that cause short circuits in the brain. It's controversial at this point. We know if you have Alzheimer's disease and we give you a drug that clears out the beta amyloid, it's not going to help you. There's been 2,000 medication trials. It's like, get over it.
And
it's
that's been
the
the model.
Alzheimer's research community has a learning disability. It's like, come on, get over it. You
Here's
need to
a
be
new way
thinking.
to get out the plaque. No, it doesn't work.
So you either need to get rid of it a lot earlier before the damage occurs, and there are ways to do that. Vitamin D and curcumin have been found to decrease the plaques thought to be responsible for Alzheimer's disease. Blueberries, sage. But you need to be putting these habits into your life when you're young, not when you're
old.
When you're old. But the G, the whole point of G is don't think of it as a death sentence, think of it as a wake-up call and be serious. Green tea is another thing that decreases the beta amyloid plaques. So age is so important. It's head trauma. And it's funny, many of the really well-known Alzheimer's researchers, they don't talk about it. And it's clearly a risk factor. I did the big NFL study. At a time when the NFL was lying they were having a problem. And so we've scanned and treated 200 players. And the level of damage was just awful. And the level of dementia was awful. But the exciting news is if you've had head trauma, you need to put your brain in a healing environment, and 80% of our players show improvement when they do the right things. So I'm really excited about it, but don't let your kids play contact sports. It's just not thoughtful when we know your brain is soft about the consistency of soft butter. Your skull is really hard and it has sharp bony ridges. Your brain runs your life. Damage it and you actually damage the hardware of your soul. It's a bad idea. We need to be much more thoughtful. The American Youth Soccer Organization said if you're under 11, you shouldn't be hitting soccer balls with your head. And it was a huge positive step. But in my mind, I'm like, you don't like 12-year-olds? You don't like 14-year-olds? At what point is it useful to have repetitive hits to the part of your body that is the CEO of your life? It's just not rational. Protect your brain. It's the most important thing.
I was really amazed in your book, the section on head trauma. You said that most people who come to you when you see in the scans, you see visible evidence of trauma, they don't remember that they ever had a trauma. You said, did you ever fall off a horse? Were you in a car accident? There's no memory that something occurred that you're seeing decades later showing up in scans, and that's common.
Peggy, it's just unbelievable. Now, they'll tell us about the trauma, but it's like we have to ask them 10 times. I had one of my NFL players, he was on 5 Super Bowl teams, Marvin Fleming, and he was a starting tight end. And I'm like, hey, Marvin, his brain looked awful. Did you ever have a brain injury? He said, no. I'm like, really? And he's like,
Really?
no, I've never been knocked out. I never got my bell rung. And I'm looking at his brain, and I'm like, well, what about before football? Nope.
No.
And then I start with the questions. Did you ever fall out of a tree, off a fence, dive into a shallow pool, concussions playing sports? Nope. In a car accident? Oh. Well, there was this one time when I was driving from Utah, where I went to college, to Los Angeles, and I got in an accident on a mountain pass, and my car fell 150 feet off a cliff into the river below.
Oh, but I didn't remember to tell you that. That just happened. I didn't think that might affect my brain.
It's like nuts. And I've had other people go through windshields of a car, fall out of moving vehicles, fall out of a second-story window.
You hear it all over here. You hear it all.
And mild traumatic brain, there's nothing mild about that. Traumatic brain injury ruins people's lives, and people don't know about it. It's a major cause of depression, suicide, homelessness, and addiction. Study from Toronto, 58% of the homeless men in Toronto, 42% of the homeless women had a significant brain injury before they were homeless. Think it counts?
I think it counts. In that section I found so interesting, you noted that the pituitary gland is located in the skull, right? And so that frequently an injury may affect that, which then affects hormonal balance. Did I get that correctly?
You did, and it's new information. Most people don't know
that was new to me.
information. And so in my NFL group, we had to test all their hormones. And here are these big strapping guys who have testosterone below normal. And they have no sex drive, and, they're sad, and their memory's no good, and a little testosterone can just be so helpful.
And that lack of testosterone may have been set off by a head.
Often set up by head trauma.
That's so important.
So important.
It's so important. So I think the two things, just to linger on this section for a minute, because you're such an expert, because you see the brain scans of the football players, so you know this in such a deep way. So the two things I think maybe we should think about are, you may very well have had some kind of head injury in the past that's affecting your behavior in negative ways, and you haven't considered that as a possible source of your problem. And the second one is, Dr. Amen says you can do something about it. that you can make your brain look prettier in the pictures and feel better if you follow this program. Right? Did I say that
80%
right?
of our players showed improvement. And as little as 2 months. You
In as
just
little-
need to put your brain in a healing environment.
Okay, so that was H. T, toxins.
T is for toxins, one of the sleeper causes of dementia. And when I first started looking at scans, alcohol, it's just so clear alcohol is not a health food. It just
Does
gives
anybody
your
think it
brain,
is?
a lot of people think it is.
Oh,
the general
okay.
population, I think, thinks they should have their 2 glasses of red wine a day, that it's good for them. And according to a study from Johns Hopkins, people who drink every day have smaller brains. And when it comes to your brain, size matters. You
Yes.
don't want
Size matters.
It's the only organ in your body where actually size really does matter. And then I looked at marijuana brains, and it's legal in 26 states, legal in 10 states for dementia. And so I published a study in December in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease on just about 1,000 pot smokers. Virtually every area of their brain was lower, especially the hippocampus. So the area that dies first in Alzheimer's disease was lower in our pot smokers. And, from being a psychiatrist for 35 years, the most common complaint among pot smokers is their memory's no good. And so, and then other drugs like cocaine and methamphetamines. So that was easy and clear. They're toxic to brain function. You can just see that on the scans. But then I started seeing toxic scans in people who said they didn't do drugs and they didn't drink.
Right.
And then
so
I went,
something else.
uh-oh, mold, exposure, carbon monoxide exposure.
monoxide?
So think of firefighters who get exposed to carbon monoxide
emergency
and
responders,
cyanide.
yeah.
Almost all the firefighters I see have toxic-looking brains. Same for pilots. When the government in its wisdom, took lead out of gasoline. They left it in small aircraft fuel. And I'm like, why'd you do that? But you often see the toxicity. And did you know, I hate this, 60% of the lipstick sold in the United States still has lead in it. I call it the kiss of death.
Ooh, some of us
So you
wear
have to be
lipstick every day.
very careful about who you kiss and what you put on your lips because, you wear it all day long. It's not a good thing. And then I was completely horrified. There's a great app. And there are a couple of them that do this, but the one I like is called Think Dirty. And you can scan all of your products, like shampoo and body wash and cosmetics and deodorant and hair gel and so on. And it'll tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how quickly it's going to kill you. So how toxic it is.
You talk pretty
and
straight to us,
literally,
don't you?
I threw out half my bathroom. I was like, oh my goodness. So it says things like phthalates and parabens and PEGs and fragrance. Get rid of it because they're all known endocrine disruptors. And so you wonder why little girls are having their menstrual periods earlier and earlier and why so many men have low testosterone levels. Yes, it could be the head trauma. It could also be the endocrine disruptors they're not even giving one thought to putting on their bodies. And so you always want to support the 4 organs of detoxification. I mean, the big principle with toxins is limit your exposure.
Okay.
Right. I mean, buy organics. You don't have pesticides. I mean, that should be obvious. Read the labels and don't buy things because whatever goes on your body goes in your body. So your skin is the largest surface area and it brings things in. So whatever you put on it goes in it. So support your kidneys, drink more water. Support your gut, eat more fiber. Support your skin, sweat, either with exercise or taking saunas. A new study from Finland showed people who took the most saunas had the lowest risk of dementia. And your liver. And with, I like a supplement called N-acetylcysteine.
Oh.
It helps with detoxification. And then eat brassicas, which is a new term for me. I go to a restaurant here in Newport Beach where I live, and there's something called brassicas. I'm like, what are those? They're detoxifying vegetables.
Brassicas?
It's kale, Brussels sprouts,
Oh.
broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower.
Oh.
And, you know, and a little olive oil with
Cruciferous.
salt. They taste awesome. And it's good for me, and it tastes great, right? And that's the secret to memory rescue with food. It's got to be good for you, but you have to make it taste great.
Yeah, because if it tastes great, you'll eat it. Otherwise, it will remain a good idea that you
See, I
don't-
grew up Catholic, like no kidding Catholic. My mom was serious as an altar boy till I was 19. And I'm done with long suffering. I'm like not doing the suffering
to
part.
enjoy.
I want to love it, but I only will eat things that love me back. I don't love food that doesn't love me. See, I've been in bad relationships in the past. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to love someone who doesn't love me back. I've been there.
Okay.
It's not fun. It's painful. It's stressful. I'm damn sure not going to be in love with Rocky Road ice cream because it doesn't love me back. So I'll find sweet treats. Here at Amen Clinics, we actually make a bar called Brain and Love and another one called Brain on Joy, which are sugar-free, dairy-free, gluten-free chocolate sweetened with stevia and erythritol. And the Brain on Joy is the coconut one, and they taste awesome. And it's a metaphor, right? I love things
They
that
love-
serve my health, not that steal my health.
Well, that what you're saying harkens back to what you started with, is that you have to love your brain. You have to love your brain. You have to decide, I'm going to fall in love with my brain if you're not already in love. One thing that helped me fall in love with my brain was your statistic that the brain fires 18 trillion times a second. Did I get that right?
You did?
I mean, that's
And it has
pretty
the storage
stunning.
capacity of 6 million years of the Wall Street Journal. If you take care of it,
If you take care of it, if you love your brain.
if you love it.
Okay, so now we finished Bright and our mnemonic device, and now we're up to M, which I believe is mental health.
Mental health issues rampant among people with memory problems and dementia. So we know depression doubles the risk in women, quadruples the risk in men. Also, PTSD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, chronic stress, grief, all significantly increase the risk of memory problems. A new study on ADHD increasing the risk of a type of dementia called Lewy body dementia. And what that means to me is you need to manage your mental health. Now, the cool thing is this Bright Minds approach.
Right.
It's the same approach I use for depression. I mean, it's the same approach I use for addictions. It's the same
It's
approach I
healing.
use
It's
for anxiety. It's just a smart approach to your mental and physical well-being. But I also talk about killing the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness and
Right.
rob you of your mind. So whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, write down what you're thinking and then talk back to it, question it. You know, I don't know if you were good talking back to your parents when you were a teenager.
Oh, I was very well behaved.
I was excellent at talking back to my parents.
Oh, it's-
I was excellent. But, you know, no one ever taught me I should talk back to the stupidity that goes on in my own mind. It's like you don't have to believe every stupid thought you have. And just some really simple things. Whenever you argue with reality, I learned this from my friend Byron Katie. Whenever you argue with reality, welcome to hell.
Yeah.
So it's learning
Yeah.
to be present in the moment, accept what is, of course, do the things you can to change it. But mindset is just so important. And then having a regular stress management practice. I like hypnosis and self-hypnosis. I practiced it for many years. A lot of people like meditation. There's one I love called loving kindness
Yes.
meditation.
I like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it's purposeful thinking, if you will, and so it starts with loving yourself. May I be happy? May I be healthy? May I be safe? So it's coming up with little mantras. So you do it for a minute for yourself. You just repeat that. And then to someone you're grateful for. May Peggy be happy. May Peggy be healthy. May Peggy be safe.
Thank you.
And then someone
could
you're
use
sort
that.
of neutral on. And then someone you just don't like. Someone you're having a hard
Okay.
time with.
Okay.
And I've had plenty of critics, so I'm happy to
You have a
get
full
them in
supply.
it, get them in on the fun. And then you do it to the whole world. And it is such positive, directed emotion, intention, that it's been found to decrease the stress found in soldiers who had PTSD. It's been found to decrease headaches. It's been found to decrease cortisol. So, I mean, simple.
Simple.
5 minutes a day.
It's simple. It's not a medication.
20 minutes a day.
It's not a
There's
drug.
no meds involved with it. And people go, well, if I have depression, does that mean medication? And it's like head-to-head against medication. Saffron has been found to be equally effective. I'm a huge fan of saffron,
saffron.
for so many reasons.
Good.
Exercise has been found to be equally effective, if you can get them to do it. Omega-3 fatty acids, equally effective in killing the ants, learning how not to believe every stupid thought
A behavioral
you have,
adjustment.
every automatic negative thought that you've had. So a thinking adjustment. And so before we do meds, why don't we do saffron and exercise, omega-3 fatty acids, and let me teach you how to kill the ants.
Because you're such an expert on brain scan, what brains look like, just to stay with mental health for a minute, can you look at a brain and say, this is PTSD, this is borderline, this is schizophrenia, this is depression? I mean, do the scans look different?
They do, but it's important to know that depression's not one thing. I wrote a
Right.
book about that.
Right.
It's 7 different things in the brain. So I can say this is a brain that's prone to depression, that's likely to respond to this treatment. I published a big study on 21,000 people showing we could distinguish traumatic brain injury from PTSD, emotional trauma, from physical trauma with high levels of accuracy. But, I think one of the big principles that underlie our work is all psychiatric illnesses, all of them, are not single or simple disorders. They all have multiple types, which is why imaging didn't catch on when I got excited about it in the early 90s,
Right.
because the researchers were going, well, what's the pattern with major depression? And I was like going, there's never going to be one, because not everybody responds to Prozac. And I can tell if someone's depressed, right? I can talk to somebody for 20 minutes, and I know whether or not they're depressed. What
Right.
I don't know is what's going on in their brain.
What's
so
making
it's
that
really a unique fingerprint in your brain for depression. So what's Peggy's depression? Is her brain busy? Is it cold? Low in activity? Is it one side or the other? So I know what to do rather than, oh, here, the scan says you're depressed.
Okay, moving along in our mnemonic, we're back to I, another
So
I.
I number 2 actually
number
has
2.
2 things. It has immunity and infections.
Oh, it's a double I.
And it's a double I, very important. Autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, MS, asthma have been associated with memory problems, a higher risk for memory problems. And infections are a major cause of dementia
Yes.
and still not really well known.
I wanted to talk to you about that for a minute. Several doctors I've spoken to have really emphasized Lyme disease, this epidemic, which then can have cognitive problems. But you talk about a lot of other ones that aren't as well known, to other viruses, parasites from your pet. I mean, you go into a whole bunch of things.
Toxoplasmosis, right?
Yeah, Epstein-Barr, West Nile. Tell us about all these horrible things that we may not be thinking of.
Well, I think the big issue is if you have memory problems and they're not getting better with simple things, somebody should do an infectious disease panel to make sure you're not at war with some invader like toxoplasmosis that comes from cat feces or Lyme. Chris Christopherson was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and actually by one of our doctors, and on an antibiotic and hyperbaric oxygen, he got his brain back and he's touring. again. Herpes is another one that's very common. And if you have genital herpes or you have cold sores, increases your risk of significant memory problems by 20%. And, that means a third of the population.
Really?
Really.
Ooh.
And so, I tell my kids always be careful who you sleep with because actually some of their genetic material is going to be mixing with yours. So it's another
most
reason.
people's parents do not put it that way, do they? It might be a good thing people understood that a little more. Okay,
So you want to boost your immune system. So how do you do that?
How do you do it?
Get gut health because, the biggest immunity you have is in your gut. And so probiotics can help also measure and optimize your vitamin D level. 67% of the population in the U.S. is low in vitamin D, often dangerously low. And normal's between 30 and 100. Optimals, I think, is between 50 and 100. They did a study at UC San Diego. They looked at people who are above 40 and people who are below 20. The people who were below 20 had 2.2 times the risk of cancer. And cancer is going to steal your brain because of the stress and the chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Right? So how simple is it just it's a blood test, 25 hydroxy vitamin D. Measure your level and get it high. And if you live in New York where, the sun's not out for a long time, you should probably be taking 5,000 units of vitamin D a day. But, rather than, take that number, go, what's your level and what do you need? I live in Southern California. The sun is out 330 days a year here. When I first tested my level, it was 17. I was horrified. And I was hungry all the time. I tried to lose weight in every way you can imagine. And when vitamin D is low, the hormone leptin that tells your brain you're not hungry anymore doesn't work.
The
And so
appetite suppressant.
when I started on vitamin D, my appetite went away. I was dropped 20 pounds. I did the right thing.
That's the greatest diet ever. Take vitamin D.
Take vitamin D.
I love that diet.
And love your brain.
Love your brain. Love your brain. Okay, that was a very important letter. All right. Okay. B R minds and neurohormonal deficiency. See, I remember.
See?
It's a good mnemonic
The mnemonic
device.
works.
I got it.
And you're petting your seahorses. You're being nice to them. You're loving them.
I have very active seahorses. You'll be happy to know.
So neurohormones just absolutely critical. They're like Miracle-Gro for your brain. And when hormones are low, Scarlett and Sam, our seahorses, wither and get smaller and can die. And so you need to measure, for women, their estrogen and progesterone levels. For everybody, their thyroid and DHEA, testosterone. And I actually don't want them normal. I want them optimal.
Optimal.
Which usually means around 70 to 100% of up to high normal. So I don't like above normal, especially for testosterone, because if you go above normal, you'll get to be a super guy, which means you'll have a crazy sex drive and have no empathy, which is the prescription for divorce.
Oh,
So-
we certainly don't want that.
So you don't want that.
No, we
but
don't want that.
at the same time, you want it high enough that you have energy and motivation and
The good drive. The drive.
your
to
mood
move.
is good
Yeah.
and your libido is healthy.
And I think you mentioned that you have found that low thyroid is so often correlated with depression. There's such a
Depression and dementia. And what we see, really low blood flow on the scans. My daughter had a great second grade teacher, loved her. And she came to me one day, she said, I'm in a master's program and I cannot think. Can you help me? And first thing I did was, besides scanner, is I ordered a battery of tests. And her thyroid, she had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And she'd seen her primary care doctor.
And he hadn't found
the only
it.
thing he ordered was a TSH rather than the whole panel. So I ordered thyroid antibodies. And her body was attacking her thyroid gland. And getting that treated, she went on and got her master's, and she felt so much happier.
Well, I think one thing we're learning from what you're telling us is there's more tests that you can do. There's more information available to help you pinpoint what's bothering you, the major source.
Right. So which of these
you
11
know.
risk factors do you have
Right.
that you need to attack? I mean, ultimately, there's something simple to do for each one of them, like B is exercise for blood flow. Retirement and aging is be engaged and learn new things. I is inflammation, take omega-3 fatty acids or eat more fish. G, genetics, have it in your family, got to be serious. H is head trauma, protect your brain. T is toxins, don't put anything toxic on your body. You know, get the app, Think Dirty, and scan your stuff. You know, mental health, loving kindness meditation, not believing every stupid thought you have, a stress management practice. All of these things are good for all of us, no matter what our age. And D is diabetes, which is a combination of diabetes and obesity. I published 2 studies that showed as your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of your brain goes down.
Your brain gets smaller.
Your
you
brain
you
gets
get
smaller.
fatter. Your brain
Right.
gets smaller. Bad. Very
Dinosaur
bad.
syndrome, big
Very
body,
bad.
little brain.
Bad.
You're going to become extinct.
Well,
it's a bad thing.
Bad. All these things you've told us are going to help us fight diabetes. I mean, just
Right.
we know exercise. You told us to eat properly. You've told us to take vitamin D, which is going to activate the hormone that tells us you're full. You don't need any. So you've addressed.
So none
it
of this
so
is hard,
many
but now
ways.
we got to
Right.
get the food right, because that's how you get diabetes under control. And basically, it's kill the sugar before it kills you. So it's kill the sugar and the foods that turn to sugar, bread, pasta, potatoes, and rice, because they're high glycemic. I wrote a book called The Brain Warrior's Way with my wife.
Yes.
And we make the argument that ISIS has nothing on our food industry. That the real weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide sprayed, high glycemic, low fiber food-like substances stored in plasticized containers. That 2/3 of Americans are overweight.
2/3. It's stunning.
To 40% of us are obese. It's the biggest brain drain in the history of the United States. And we're doing it to ourselves. It's just nuts. We need to do better. I think of calories like money. You overspend, you're gonna get bankrupt. And so I actually like going to places where they have calories on the menu. 'Cause if I don't know what's in it, I'm not eating it, right? I'd never buy something I wouldn't know the cost to it. But all calories are not the same, right? You want to go with
Yes.
high quality,
High quality, nutrient dense.
nutrient dense. But, you know, we have to stop lying to ourselves. Our obesity epidemic, we're not going to be able to pay for, because the side effects with diabetes and cancer, heart disease, and dementia,
Which is so costly.
are just not okay.
So costly.
So that's back to Chloe's game. Whatever I'm going to eat today, is it good for my brain or bad for it?
S is for sleep, and sleep. We got to sleep.
It's just absolutely critical.
We got to sleep.
When you sleep, your brain cleans and washes itself. So if you don't get 7 hours at night, the cleanup crew doesn't have enough time to clean up the mess that you made during the day.
That's right.
And less than 7 hours is associated with low blood flow to your brain.
So I like that you said that, because that takes us back to the beginning, the low blood flow.
And if you have low blood flow to your frontal lobes, that means more bad decisions.
More bad decisions, more stress, more everything. Everything connects with everything else. The program is really coherent. It's really 360
Right, and
degrees.
sleep apnea triples your risk of Alzheimer's disease, because it's an oxygen dead state, and your brain is the most oxygen hungry organ in your body. And so in order to have a bright mind,
Your bright mind.
you have to attack all the risk factors.
You need. I want to. We've been through the program. I just want to give people just a little information. You've got some extra tricks up your sleeve that most people don't know about that you mentioned, like hyperbaric oxygen treatment, and another one I think was transcranial stimulation or something. You have some good tricks, and most people don't know about them. Their doctors may not know about them.
So I'm a huge fan of hyperbaric oxygen, going in a chamber, getting more oxygen under pressure. I've seen it boost blood flow to the brain. I published a study on soldiers showing remarkable increased blood flow, no side effects, simple to do. Even the home chambers that don't have as much pressure have been found to be helpful. Transcranial magnetic stimulation, classically thought of as a treatment for depression, but there's also been studies on memory and dementia showing it can be helpful. Also neurofeedback, another treatment, shown to be helpful, as is super simple. Audiovisual stimulation, glasses and headphones that give you lights and sounds at certain frequencies to help optimize brain function.
I think a lot of people aren't aware that there are these extra tools, and it's important that they know. You shouldn't give up. You shouldn't give up. There might be
lots of things to do.
There might be.
So know
this
what
thing
your
that
risk
works.
factors are, attack those first, and then try to put the simple things from all of the risk factors in place.
So one last question, because we've gone through the program, and it's great that we got through it all. I just want you to speculate. What do you think our brains are going to be like in 10 years or so as we age? Because you point out that all these devices that we have are actually changing our attention span. You said that humans now have an 8-second attention span and goldfish have a 9-second, so we're underperforming from goldfish. So
Right. They don't have smartphones. They don't have dumb phones. I guess that's the way to put it.
How's this all go? How are we going to age with this kind of stimulation?
Well, it's not going to go away, so we have to make peace with it, and we need to make sure we take breaks from it. But, I mean, the study was from Microsoft online. The human attention span is 8 seconds.
8 seconds.
In 2000, it was 12 seconds. So we've lost a third of our attention span in a very short period
That
of
is stunning.
time. So hopefully with the scientists you're talking to, people like me, will educate people to take better care of their brains.
I love that. And that's the whole, give us the parting message. I think you just did, but.
Well, I mean, the message of my life is you're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, even if you've been bad to it. You just have to put it in a healing environment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amen. I so appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot from Dr. Amen. And I hope you read his book, Memory Rescue, because it really has so much great information that you heard today and much, much more. So here's to loving your brain. Hello, this is Peggy Sarlin, back at our Regain Your Brain main office, here to give you a heads up on tomorrow's episode. You don't want to miss tomorrow's interview because it provides answers to one of the biggest causes of memory loss and dementia, and that's not getting enough high-quality sleep. Now, as Dr. Amen said in the interview that we just saw, sleep is absolutely critical. Sleep is the time when our brain cleanses itself of waste and debris. And he's found that when people get less than 7 hours of sleep a night, they have reduced blood circulation to the brain. He can actually see that on their brain scans. So I'm delighted to say we have a return engagement with Dr. Michael Breus, who was a star in our first series. Dr. Breus is a clinical psychologist and a fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, and he's one of America's most recognized sleep experts. He's written 2 books on the subject. He's appeared on Dr. Oz more than 30 times. And in this all-new interview, Dr. Breus takes us into new territory, especially focusing on circadian rhythms. That's our natural biological clock. And too many of us have messed with our natural rhythms in a big way. And that takes a toll on our sleep and our ability to think and to remember. Dr. Breus calls it the power of when. There's a right time to sleep, a right time of the day to do challenging brain work. There's a time of day when we're more creative. Everything's better in your life when you start cooperating with your internal daily cycle instead of fighting it. He goes into a whole bunch of tips on how to sleep faster, better, how to identify and solve the reasons why you can't sleep, much more. And if you or somebody you love is taking sleep medications, either prescription or even over the counter, even if it's over the counter, you have to watch Dr. Bruce's interview tomorrow. You probably don't need the pills. He explains why. And you'll also learn something very valuable if you use melatonin, which is the natural hormone that a lot of people take as a sleep aid, because most people take much too large a dose. And not only that, they take it at the wrong time. So Dr. Bruce lays out a whole nightly routine. It's going to put you to sleep at the right time, without pills, and it's going to help you sleep through the night and wake up feeling refreshed like you haven't felt in years. Don't miss it. The episode becomes available at 9 a.m. Eastern. It will be available for viewing for 24 hours, and you'll get an email tomorrow at 9 in the morning with the link to the episode, and I will see you then.
Please consider supporting our important mission by choosing to own a copy of Regain Your Brain for yourself. You'll receive all the valuable therapies in the interviews and many more additional gifts and benefits. Your purchase will help us continue to bring this vital, important information to more people. Just click on one of the banners below and join us in our mission.